Hi Ari, hi Ethan. Happy daylight savings? I say happy daylight savings with a question mark because I'm not sure if I like it. In this video, I will discuss the history of US daylight savings for the purposes of deciding if we should get rid of it or not. Colloquially, sometimes people use the term daylight savings time to refer to the shift in clocks each spring and fall. But officially, daylight savings time is the time of year from the second Sunday in March to the first Sunday in November in the US when we push our clocks 1 hour later to have a longer time in the evening before sunset. Standard time refers to the 4-month period of the year where clocks are set an hour back. Hopefully, that clears up the terminology. In 1895, a New Zealand man named George Hudson liked to collect bugs after work before sunset. He presented a paper to the Wellington Philosophical Society proposing a 2-hour daylight saving shift. Independently, a Londoner, William Willett, came up with the idea for daylight savings in 1907 when he noticed a large number of Londoners would sleep when the sun was out during the summer. This idea was tossed around, and some cities and countries began to adopt it, especially during World War I, to save on evening time electricity costs during the summer. Now for the U.S. Daylight Savings Time line. In 1918, the Standard Time Act was created to create efficiency during World War I. The idea was that by increasing evening light during the summertime, people would consume less electricity. This also established time zones. In 1919, daylight savings time was ended after World War I. Daylight savings time was very unpopular with farmers because they had less time in the morning to milk cows and harvest crops to bring to market. Some cities chose to keep daylight savings time, including New York City, who used it to have more overlap in trading hours with London. Then, in 1942, FDR instituted daylight savings time to support World War II production. He dubbed it wartime. Wartime! After the war, many states chose to keep daylight savings time, but it was not organized at a federal level. This led to inconsistency. Some parts of Texas and North Dakota even kept a reverse daylight savings time, allowing them to observe mountain time instead of central time. In 1966, the transportation industry found the lack of consistency confusing and pushed for federal regulation. President Lyndon B. Johnson signed the Uniform Time Act and gave the newly formed Department of Transportation, or DOT, the power to enforce the law. Daylight savings time started in the last Sunday in April and ended on the last Sunday in October, making it exactly 6 months long. States could choose to opt in if they wanted to, but would be required to follow federal dates if they wanted in. Notably, New Mexico and Hawaii are opted out to this day. During the 1973 oil embargo by the Organization of Arab Petroleum Exporting Countries, Congress enacted year-round daylight time to see if it would conserve fuel as a country. That's right. We didn't have daylight savings time for 2 years in the 70s. Those in favor argued that permanent daylight time, which would allow for more sunlight in the evening, would not only reduce energy needs, but increase time for recreation in the evenings, like inventor George Hudson would have wanted, reduce crime by pushing dusk out by an hour, and reduce evening automobile accidents. However, the opposition was worried about children leaving for school in the dark during winter mornings. After many morning traffic collisions involving children in Florida, including 8 deaths, the governor of Florida at the time asked for the law to be repealed. In December of 1973, the law had 79% public support, and by March of 1974, the law had 42% public support. Imagine if children dying was enough to shift public opinion about laws in such a dramatic way in modern times. The trial ended in 1975, and the U.S. went back to daylight savings time permanently. In 1986, Congress amended the Uniform Time Act, shifting the start of daylight savings time from the last Sunday in April to the first Sunday in April, benefiting the economy and commerce, with the golf and barbecue industries being major proponents of this additional time in the evenings of early spring. The Energy Policy Act of 2005 stated that starting in 2007, daylight savings time would begin on the second Sunday in March and end on the first Sunday in November. These are the dates we use now, making it 8 months long. The Department of Energy was required to analyze the energy savings of this change in 2008 and found that there were nationwide electricity savings of 0.03% for the year 2007, which is very little. A 2008 study by UC Santa Barbara even found that there was an increase in energy consumption in Indiana because while people use their lights less due to the increased daylight, they also use their AC more, which increased overall power consumption. At the same time, the U.S. Chamber of Commerce praised this bill for increasing spring and fall time spending, including additional spending for Halloween due to the additional hour of sunlight on Halloween night. This affected how long Halloween was for me when I was a kid. It has continued to be a national debate on whether to get rid of daylight savings time or get rid of it. More than 30 states have had bills to switch to either permanent standard or daylight time. In 2019, a state senator proposed the Sunshine Protection Act, which would permanently switch the U.S. to daylight time. I want you to close your eyes and in your head, imagine which senator would push for this type of legislation. That's right, it's Senator Marco Rubio of Florida. Yes, Florida man advocated for getting rid of permanent daylight time in the 70s, and now Florida man is advocating for bringing it back. The Sunshine Protection Act keeps getting kicked around and almost getting passed. It has been introduced 4 separate times, most recently earlier this year. Notably, the American Academy of Sleep Medicine and the American Medical Association have opposed the Sunshine Protection Act and instead called for permanent standard time because it better aligns with human circadian rhythms, but still advocate for getting rid of the annual shifting clocks. In 2025, a Stanford study found that switching to permanent standard time was predicted to reduce cases of obesity by 2.6 million and stroke by 300,000. Switching to permanent daylight time would have similar but reduced effects. Daylight savings time is now mostly observed in the US, Europe, Chile, Egypt, New Zealand, and part of Australia. Most countries that had once observed daylight savings time no longer do. Partially, this is because daylight savings time is more effective in places farther from the equator due to having a larger difference in length of day throughout the year. I think that daylight savings time is a political issue not fit for our modern political system. It is highly nuanced, with a large number of different stakeholders and implementations, and it is not currently a partisan issue, which prevents it from getting large amounts of media attention. It is really hard to generate a good list of pros and cons. There's so many theorized benefits and detriments. It reminds me of my "do cars drive faster or slower when it is raining" thought experiment. The idea is that it can be easy to determine the reasons that something might be positive or negative, but it can be difficult to determine the magnitude that each effect has overall. For example, rain is commonly tied to changes in air pressure, which can cause inclement weather. This change in air pressure causes headaches, which cause these drivers to have decreased reaction times and drive slower. But at the same time, drivers understand that rain will help crops to grow, which will bring prosperity to their communities, which will make them happier and drive faster. So, will the psychological effects of rain cause drivers to go faster or slower? Obviously, the answer is that people would drive slower, but for daylight savings time, it can be difficult to determine which effects matter the most. Also, arguments for and against daylight savings time can get muddied because there are actually 2 arguments being had. One argument is about whether we should continue switching our clocks twice a year, and one argument is about if we should switch to permanent daylight time or standard time. To help clear these arguments up, I have created 2 tables. Arguments for to keep changing clocks. It aligns daylight with human activity across seasons, and it has existing infrastructure. Arguments against keeping changing clocks. It disrupts sleep patterns twice a year. It's linked with increased accidents and health issues. It causes confusion and scheduling errors. Arguments for stopping changing the clocks. It improves public health by reducing circadian disruption. It simplifies scheduling and reduces errors. And there is a consistent time year-round for businesses and international coordination. Arguments against stopping changing the clocks. Some regions may face very early sunsets or sunrises year-round. The second debate is whether we should switch to permanent daylight or permanent standard time. The arguments for permanent standard time are that it best aligns with natural solar and circadian rhythms. Health experts often recommend it for better sleep and well-being, and it reduces morning darkness during the winter. Arguments against permanent standard time are that it has earlier sunsets year-round and reduces evening outdoor activity, And there's less alignment with modern social/economic patterns favoring evening daylight. Arguments for permanent daylight time is that there's more evening daylight for recreation and commerce, and it reduces need for artificial lighting during the evenings. Arguments against permanent daylight time: very late winter sunrises, as late as 9 a.m. in the northern regions of the US. Potential negative health impacts from circadian misalignment, and safety concerns for children commuting during dark mornings. I think it's clear that getting rid of the twice annual clock shifting is the way to go. Initially, I made this video because I wanted to advocate for a shift to permanent daylight time. This is for my seasonal depression, which I believe would be partially relieved by sunnier evenings during the dark Boston winter. It's funny to me that this reason for desiring permanent daylight time is barely mentioned in the Wikipedia article for daylight savings time and not mentioned at all in the article for daylight savings time in the US. Now, I'm not sure whether it would be better to switch to permanent daylight time or permanent standard time. Russia switched to permanent daylight time from 2011 to 2014, but it was unpopular due to late winter sunrises. So they switched to permanent standard time. We could follow a similar approach, try out permanent daylight time, and if we don't like it, switch to permanent standard time. I don't want to see the Sunshine Protection Act get kicked around in committee for forever because we can't make up our mind and incidentally keep the worst option of all three. Wow, this video was long. Initially, this video was supposed to talk about daylight savings time in a cursory paragraph and then spend most of its time talking about cool sun stuff and seasonal depression. But I seem to fall down a hyperfixation rabbit hole. What a fascinating political issue. Next week, I'll probably make part 2. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed, please like and subscribe. And if you didn't, blame my brothers.